Thanks for watching NTD News. We're here outside Washington, D.C. at CPAC. We're joined by Gordon Chang. He's the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Paul.
Gordon, we see a lot of action happening around the Ukraine-Russia war, specifically Russia and the United States signaling at closer relations between the two countries. Number one, do you see that actually manifesting and becoming a reality? Number two, what does it mean for this Russia-China relationship that we've seen grow so strong over the past 3 to 4 years?
Yeah, I can understand President Trump trying to woo Russia away from China, but I don't think that's possible right now. And the reason is that Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, they see the world in the same terms. They identify their interests in the same way, and they know they have the same enemy. That's the United States in their view. You know, when Nixon took China away from the Soviet Union, they had already split. Now, you know, people are trying to do the same thing, but I don't think it's possible because of the way Russia and China now are so close. They both help each other, so I don't see that working out at all for us.
What happens if President Trump makes it a requirement on Russia to, forcefully come closer to the United States rather than deal with China?
You know, Putin can say anything that he wants and Trump may believe him, but we know that Russian Federation has just violated every agreement they've had with us. So I don't trust Putin when he would make a promise to Trump about this. I'd like it to be true, but I think that we're replaying the 1938 Munich Pact, land for peace. It doesn't work with militant aggressors.
How do you see this playing out then?
You know, I don't know how this is going to work out. You know, I know that Trump wants to have a deal with Putin, but Putin is going to press him. And because of that, I'm not sure that they'll be able to come to an arrangement which is satisfactory to President Trump. So maybe there'll be a deal, but maybe there won't. And if there's not, then I think that Trump has got to be in a pretty hard position because he'll have to support Ukraine. Now, there are things that we can do. We can enforce the January 10th sanctions on Russian tankers and Russian oil, and that can be very effective. But, right now, I just don't see how this works out.
Well, let's see, because we see Europe preparing a new raft of sanctions on Europe. If Russia doesn't play a game with Trump, perhaps we'll see the United States put more sanctions on them. Let's talk about China a little bit. Reciprocal tariffs. These are blanket reciprocal tariffs for everybody in the world, but I would assume China will be more affected than any other nation in the world by these reciprocal tariffs.
Oh, absolutely. And the reason is Xi Jinping has turned his back on consumption as being the basis of the Chinese economy. That means he has only one way to rescue a very desperate situation. That's to export more. And that means he absolutely needs the American market, the world's largest. It can't be replaced in any reasonable time frame, which means that President Trump has all the high cards. And when President Trump starts putting tariffs on China, which I hope that he adds more to them, then I think we're going to see the Chinese economy fail. Because right now, it is not growing at the 5.0% pace that they claimed for last year. It's more like zero, Paul.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit above, maybe a little bit below, but essentially zero.
Do they have any response to Trump's tariffs?
They will huff and puff. But remember, we're the bigger economy. The Chinese economy, even if you believe their fabricated and exaggerated numbers, is less than 2/3 the size of ours. But even more important, we are the trade deficit country. And in trade wars, trade surplus countries like China just can't win. Last year, their merchandise trade surplus with the U.S. was $295.4 billion. That's up something like 5.8% from 2023. So we're the trade deficit country. We're the bigger economy. We're going to win this.
But I think it's incredible when you consider the leverage President Trump has found in tariffs. Number one, like you said, the size of the U.S. economy and the strength of the U.S. consumer. But we also have the fact that America's import tariffs are so low vis-a-vis other countries. The leverage that Trump has is just enormous.
Oh, well, it is. And that's one of the reasons why, we have sort of had an economy very indulgent. We've allowed these tariffs, but more important, non-tariff barriers on American goods. once we start leveling the playing field, we're going to see manufacturing, there's going to be a renaissance in this country because Trump understands that we need to make our own things. You can have a globalized world if it's peaceful. We're not in a peaceful world anymore, and that means we've got to have resilience, we've got to have manufacturing. It will come back to this country. This will be great for us.
Let me ask you, on the manufacturing renaissance, like you put it, how long will it actually take to build up these factories, to build up the infrastructure? And number two, what happens if the next administration just starts undoing it all?
Two great questions. I mean, different industries will grow at different speeds. So for instance, you take something complicated like semiconductors, that'll take longer, but there's certain things that can come back to this country very quickly. And if they don't come back to this country, they could come to Mexico or Central America, and that would be good for us as well for a number of different reasons. So yeah, I think that is going to be something that will be very popular, especially after 4 years. So even if the Democrats were to win in 2028, I don't think that they're going to reverse Trump's policies. Remember Biden, who campaigned against Trump's tariffs, he kept Trump's tariffs in place for his 4 years. So I sort of see the same dynamic. This is going to become a part of basically a bipartisan American policy to build up manufacturing.
And I think as well, it's very bullish for unions and union families, which you see both parties in last election really catering to.
Yes, well, I mean, right now, we have seen the labor leadership, they've sort of moved over to Trump, but the labor rank and file, they definitely are Republican right now. I don't do domestic politics. I'm mystified by the Democratic Party not trying to pivot back to its traditional base. But right now, I don't see them reassembling their Roosevelt majority coalition. And that's going to be a problem for them if they continue with policies that most Americans abhor.
Let's talk a little bit about US-China technology competition. We've seen in the news China's AI release DeepSeek. We see recently Xi Jinping is rather desperately bringing together all of his tech leaders after shunning them just a number of years ago. What do you make of this technology competition as we stand at the moment?
Well, first of all, you referenced that two meetings that Xi Jinping had, first with the entrepreneurs and then with the tech people. And I think that shows that China is desperate. And the reason is that Xi Jinping abhors private industry, private entrepreneurs. He really gave Jack Ma a very hard time. And now he's welcoming him back, which means Xi Jinping realizes he got to do something that he absolutely hates to do, which is to bring these people back into the fold. In terms of technology, in various areas, we have a real race. And especially in AI right now, the Chinese are a little bit ahead of us. But we got to remember that DeepSeek is not as impressive as it claimed to be. It certainly spent more than the $1.6 million that they said. That's ridiculous. We know that they have all those NVIDIA chips. This looks like a Communist Party project. So I'm sure there was a lot more time involved in putting DeepSeek's technology together, as well as a lot more money than their $6 million that they're talking about.
We see the team that Trump has put together contains quite a number of China hardliners. Marco Rubio, Mike Walls, Peter Navarro on trade. How do you see that approach coming, kind of developing over the next 4 years?
I wish I had a crystal ball, Paul, because he also has Elon Musk, who has been a lot easier on China. And also there's some other picks, especially in the Defense Department, that look to be less resolute than the ones that you mentioned. I don't know how it works out, but one of the things is it's not so much us, it's China's driving this. China is driving the relationship in places we don't want to go. So even though there's an Elon Musk there, I think that we're going to have a much tougher China policy because the Chinese are going to force us to do it. So this is no longer a question of American policy. This is China forcing us to do things that we just thought incomprehensible a few years ago.
When I spoke with somebody recently, they suggested that Trump not speak so positively about the Chinese leader Xi Jinping because it gives mixed messages to the Chinese people because they don't like the dictatorship. They don't like Xi Jinping or these people who are ruling over them. this person suggested that instead Trump should speak directly to the Chinese people, which we've seen Matt Pottinger do a few years ago. Would you like to see more of this from the administration?
Yeah, I don't like when President Trump says that Xi Jinping is a good friend, because it legitimizes the Chinese leader. And it's not just the Chinese people, it's also leaders around the world. They take those sentiments seriously, and they shouldn't, because China is an enemy of the United States. And it's an enemy because they say they're an enemy. So you can't say, oh, the leader of an enemy is a friend. That is wrong. And I'd like to see him talk directly to the Chinese people. Remember Mike Pompeo, when he was Secretary of State, he said that the one time that the Chinese always got so upset was when Pompeo talked to the Chinese people directly. And we should do that. That's absolutely the right course of action.
How about China's transnational repression? We see that not only are they looking to suppress dissent in their own country, but around the world we see bounties being put on Americans' heads, Joey Xiu from Hong Kong, etc. How do you see America combating this under the Trump administration?
Oh, yeah, this is really an issue because especially the Chinese regime goes after Chinese Americans, and also just any person of Chinese ethnicity. And we first of all got to recognize it. We got to start saying it out loud, and we have got to start throwing out Chinese agents in our country and Chinese diplomats. You know, we've had a series of presidents, including Trump 45, but Biden certainly, Obama before him. We knew, and we've known Chinese agents have been operating in our country, Chinese diplomats have been operating in our country in ways that violate our sovereignty and also ways that violate our laws, and we've put up with this. You know, Paul, this is our country. This is just unacceptable, and we should start imprisoning and expelling. And once we do that, then, you know, I think we get someplace. We take a Chinese agent, Ministry of State Security, or a Chinese soldier in our country. We put him in Guantanamo forever. I think that changes the way China looks at us.
There was a guy recently, they put him in jail for trying to bribe an IRS agent. I don't know if you saw this story. He tried to get Shenyun Performing Arts a non-profit status revoked. Two guys who were sent here by the Chinese Communist Party. They didn't realize they were bribing an undercover FBI agent, but they were sentenced to jail in the end. I believe they got 3 to 4 years each.
They get light sentences. I mean, you know, there's all sorts of Chinese agents doing things, and they get, you know, for instance, one of them was surveilling a military base, I think in Florida, and he gets out on bail. You know, God knows whether we're going to see that guy meet his court date. So there should be no bail. And I think they should be considered enemies of the United States, and we should be putting them in Cuba, in Guantanamo. We do that, then we get someplace. But we've been far too lax.
Why?
I don't know. You know, I just think that American presidents have thought that if they irritated Chinese leaders, it would make it more difficult for a relationship. But what we're doing is, by not enforcing our own laws, we are showing the Chinese that we are weak. When we show the Chinese are weak, they continue malicious conduct. So I think what we've been doing is we've been feeding an already arrogant regime. So, you know, we have seen that our policies for decades haven't worked. We haven't changed them. I'm just at a loss. But also, the other thing, I'm angry.
I think to wrap it up, Gordon, what are the chances of the Trump administration, now that he has these hardliners there with him, taking a leaf out of Reagan's book in the Reagan administration of how they undermined the Soviet Union economically, politically, socially, in order to bring about their dissolution? You think there's any chance that the Trump administration attempts something like this?
I don't think Trump is a Reagan. You know, Reagan came in, he believed, he said, and he was willing to say it out loud, that the regime in Moscow was evil. Now, Trump is not that way. But Trump can take actions that can actually bring down the Chinese economy. Tariffs, like we were just talking about. One other thing, you know, if we started enforcing U.S. law, the Tariff Act of 1930 prohibits the importation into the U.S. of goods made with forced labor. We do those types of things, not intending to bring down the regime, merely enforcing our own laws. Well, that could very well bring down the Chinese regime. Trump not intending to do it, but having that same effect. But, you know, he's not a Reagan. He doesn't have that same motivating desire and goal.
Gordon Chang, author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.